All right, so we are finishing a series today that I started a couple of weeks ago called Mistaken Identity, and the idea of this is that, I have different things that identify who I am, right? I am a grandpa, and I'm a husband, and I'm a dad, and I'm an employee, and I'm, all these different titles that give me an identification. And they say something significant about me, and you do too. I mean, we've talked about so many things: friend, spouse, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, aunt, son, daughter, uncle, on and on. We could go with all these different things that identify who we actually are. So you have different identifiers in your life. And this is significant because sometimes the world that we live in is really, really hard on us, and we go through painful things or we deal with painful people, and they put new labels on us. And we internalize these mistaken identity phrases. And we've talked about some of the big ones. There are people who live every day with this idea that I am not good enough, or I'm incapable, or I am a burden, or I am unlovable as I am, or I'm even unworthy of happiness. And so all of these mistaken identities get locked inside of us, and it's subtle. You just get hurt enough, and all of a sudden you start to believe these things are true about you. And they're toxic to us. They keep us from the life that God wants us to experience in so many ways. The cool thing is that in the New Testament, Jesus comes along and he says, listen, I have some new identity labels for all of you who say that you become my followers. Really brand new ones, and they're powerful. They are, you are now, through faith in me, a child of God, which was the one we started with. If you want to go back and listen to that one, I highly encourage you. If you didn't hear that one, the one we started with, please consider going back and listen to it, because you got to know who you are to Jesus. You're also salt, and he says you're ambassadors and priests and sheep and temple of God. And so there's so many different labels that he gives, new identifiers for who we are. Some of those may make sense to you. Some of you are like, I have no idea what that means. So that's okay. That's how faith, we just learn things over time. So my favorite one, though, when I started planning this series, the one I knew that I was going to do was what Jesus said here in John 15:5, when Jesus said, I'm the vine, and here's who you are. You are the branches. That's who you are. You're a branch. Okay? Now, to them, 2,000 years ago, when they heard this, they lived in an agricultural society. Maybe as he was saying it to his disciples, there was a vineyard nearby. They would all know exactly what this meant. So that's what a vineyard looks like. You got a branch connected to the vine, and Jesus said, I'm the vine. You're not the vine. I am the vine. And in this imagery that he painted for us with this new identity, this is my new identity. I'm a branch. That's what I am. Jesus is the vine, and I am the branch. There are several key important themes from this. First off is the theme of dependence. If you take a pruning shears like that and you cut that branch off from the vine, that branch dies. It'll have the perception of life for a while, right? It won't instantly turn dead. It'll still have green in it for a while. But if you come back and check on it in a week or 2 weeks or a month or 6 months, the life will be gone. Jesus is saying this is what it's like. You are dependent on me for the life that you want to experience in this world. It also has this theme of fruitfulness, which is what he wants for our lives. God has these big plans for us, so much more than we would ever imagine for ourselves. And to me, the most important theme of the whole thing is connected. So you can see, I picked this picture here. You can see the green part of the branch, and this is the connecting point, right? And this is the imagery that Jesus wants us to have in our mind, is that we need to remain connected to him. He's the vine, we're the branches. And we need to remain connected to him. Because if we do that, then he will pour his life into us. The interesting thing is, when you look at the world around us, the world doesn't believe this. American culture doesn't believe this. American culture does not believe that the way to have the best life, the deepest, the richest life in this world is to connect with Jesus, right? Doesn't believe that. It believes it's to get more stuff and to get ahead in this world and to make it all about you. The fascinating thing, the tragic thing about that is when people chase that and ignore this part of who they are, it doesn't actually produce any kind of happiness. Years ago, I read an article that Matthew Perry did before he died, and he was being interviewed and talking about the kind of journey that he's been on. So many of you know the actor from the Friends TV show. You know that he struggled with a lot of addictions. He said in the article that I was reading, he said, when he was young, his first prayer to God was, God, you can do whatever you want with me, just please make me famous. So that was his big prayer, just make me famous. And at the age of 14, he was really in a lot of pain. He had a broken family. There were things going wrong in his life, and he got a hold of a bottle of wine. He drank the whole thing, and he said it made him feel euphoric and in heaven. Even the wording is interesting, right? In heaven. It's like, oh, this is what I needed to feel good. A whole lot of alcoholism and drunkenness. But of course, that fades away, and so it turned into an addiction. He said then when he went to Hollywood a few years later, he thought stardom, being a star, might replace his daily drinking habit. And listen to the words he said, and heal the hole inside me. If you know his story, you know it didn't. Fame, money, everything that the world says is important didn't do it. He said his addictions grew. He turned to painkillers. At one point in the interview, he said he was taking 55 Vicodin pills a day. Yeah, and his body finally just wore out from it all. We look around us all the time thinking, no, I don't need Jesus to be the source of life. I need money, or I need fame, or I need more stuff. I need things, and we look to all of these things in the world, and yet when the people get a hold of them, do they have what they need for life and godliness in those things? It doesn't fill the hole, like they say. And Jesus is saying, if you will let me, then I will pour my life into you, and it'll be completely different than what you've experienced in this world. So we want to explore that today. We're finishing a series, like I said, called Mistaken Identity, and we want to talk about what does it really mean for Jesus to say, we're branches, he's the vine. Would you please open your program, take out the notes you'll find inside, grab your notes and a pen. There'll be some things you might want to write down today, and of course, welcome to all of you watching online. So glad you're watching. If you go to our website at Peniel Church Life, you can always download these notes for free. So we're going to jump right into this. We've got a lot to cover today, and we're going to get through some of it. Here we go. So number one, connecting with God this is the first thing, and this has to be the concept that you walk out here with. If I want life in my soul, then it's going to be from connecting with God. This is where it comes from. Jesus said, he's the vine, the source of life. We're the branches. And if you try and live the life that you want, apart from him, you will never experience what he's offering, the fullness of life. And I have so many examples I could turn to. How many of you ever watched this show when it was out? Everybody Loves Raymond? So funny. So funny. He goes from being the struggling stand-up comedian, he gets a TV show called Everybody. I remember when it first came out, I'm like, I don't love Raymond. So I was like, what a strange title. And he was hilarious. And this show lasted 9 years. By the end of the 9th year, he was one of the highest paid actors in all of Hollywood. Did you know that? That's how successful this program was. One of the highest paid actors in Hollywood. When they filmed the last episode and he stood in front of the audience to talk about it, he said, he stood up and he read a note one of his older brothers had given him the day he moved from New York, where he lived, to Hollywood. He said, 9 years ago, my brother Richard wrote this for me. He said, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? And with tears in front of that audience that day, Ray said, now I'm going to go work on my soul. Every time I show you this, people chase all of this stuff that the world says is important, and they get it. They don't go, come celebrate with me because my soul is so content. It's not the vine. None of these things are. Jesus is the vine. And what we're looking for and longing for is found in him. So look at what Jesus said in this passage, one of my favorite passages in the Bible. John 15, it says, remain in me. Jesus said this. He said, talking to his disciples, he said, remain in me and I will remain in you. By the way, hold on a second. I want you to listen for anything repeated in these two verses, because there are two things that are repeated multiple times. So listen for the repetition. Remain in me and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it's severed from the vine. And you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. Yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit, for apart from me you can do nothing. Now obviously, There are plenty of people who don't believe in God and they do something. So what's he saying in that last part is that nothing that you produce will be of eternal value. It won't have this ability to compensate the emptiness that fills inside. And that's what we see all the time. All right, so did you catch the two things that are repeated in those two verses? Listen, anytime Jesus is talking and he repeats himself again and again and again, that's significant. So 3 times in these two verses, Jesus says, remain, remain, remain. So remain in me. This is the emphasis. You want to know what following Jesus is really about? It's about remaining connected to Jesus. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. It's not about going to church on Sunday. It's not about doing good things. It's about remaining connected to Jesus. He's the vine, we're the branches. Everything I want is found in him. But the other thing he says 3 times in these two verses is fruitful. So what is this fruit thing? I mean, I love fruit, and I really love blueberries. I mean, I'm going to start having blueberries come out my ears, my armpits. So what is he saying with this fruit? 2 important things to understand about this. Jesus is saying, first off, there will be external fruit in my life, and on your notes, if you want to write this down, lives will be changed. There is external fruit that happens when Jesus is the focus of my life. When I'm deeply connected to him, people around me change in some significant ways. People around me start considering following Jesus because of what they're seeing in me. So people around me grow in their faith, and people around me are impacted by our kindness. You know, that card that we read at the beginning of in the announcements about the person who was so impacted by the meal that one of you brought to them. People are impacted. And you have a positive impact in this world, and I want you to just think, as you sit here today, is this list present in your life? So this is a byproduct. Branches don't produce fruit. They remain connected to the vine, and the vine, if it's healthy, pours its life into them, and fruit is just a byproduct. So are people being positively impacted because of your life? So Jesus says there will be external fruit, but then the fruit that is really significant too is this internal fruit, and this is described as God's character becomes visible inside of me. And this is really significant. The character of God. You should be able to look at me and see the character of God in me. So I was at a conference once, and it was a Christian conference and for church leaders, and we were sitting there talking, and the speaker had us work in tables, and he said, I want you to answer 2 questions for me. He said, what emerges in the life of a person who neglects their soul? What emerges in the life of a person who neglects their soul? It wasn't hard. I've been teaching in churches for 35 years, so I've watched lots of people over the years make decisions to grow closer to God, but I've also seen the opposite. I had a good friend who was a strong follower of Jesus who is an atheist today, and I watched the journey, and I can tell you what emerged in his life, like I've seen so many times when people go from following Jesus to apathetic toward God. Soul doesn't matter. Soul doesn't matter at all. Anxiety, guilt, stress, loss of meaning, self-absorption, shame, apathy, anger, isolation, less compassion, impatience, and that last one's a big one. The only thing that matters is what you get in the world then. Cut God out, and the only thing that matters is more of everything the world says is important. What else you got? There's nothing else. If there is nothing eternal and you don't have a soul and there is no God, then just go after stuff because there is nothing left. And that's what I've seen over and over and over again. Then he asked another question. The speaker said, well, what emerges in the life of a person who connects their soul deeply to God? And I'll be really honest with you. I have, in my life, there are these times where I'm deeply connected to him and he's pouring his life into me. And then there are times when I'm not. So if you think that I'm only ever doing this right, then I am explaining this wrong. So I've had those seasons of my life where I felt so deeply connected to him, and they are times of unbelievable qualities like this: joy. I mean, just unspeakable joy and love, not just love for others, but God's love in me, and patience and supernatural peace. And the desire to give kindness to others, and faith, and gentleness, and self-control, and generosity, and discernment, and balance, and wisdom, and purpose. And so these things tend to emerge in my life when my soul is rightly connected and deeply connected to Jesus. He just pours his life into me. They are not mine. They're his showing up in my life through him, because I'm not the vine. I'm a branch. And the more I connect with him, the more he puts his life in me. And then he put these up on the chart, and he said, here's your two options. And he said, which one do you choose? Well, obviously, everyone in the room goes, list number 2, right? But the reality is, you choose every day. Every day you make a decision to either take your soul and connect it to the source of life, or to say, soul schmoll, who cares about my soul? And then you get list number 1. You get that for free. Because what happens if I cut a branch off from a vine and just throw it on the ground? It won't have life. God is our source of life. It's challenging to think about this, I know, because there is nothing as unimportant in American culture today as our eternal soul. Nothing. There is nothing as unimportant. You will find more Americans today trying to identify what the next Netflix show is they should binge watch than even giving thought to, hey, I wonder how the condition of my soul is. Right? Am I making that up? We don't care. But you will care. Everybody has that aha moment in life where they're like, oh no, this matters. Everybody. For this man, it came when he was a fighter pilot in the Vietnam War and he was shot down. He was caught by the North Vietnamese and he was held in prison. And if you know how they treated prisoners in that war, it was awful. While he was in prison, he actually survived as a prisoner of war and was released after the war. And he wrote a book about it called In the Presence of My Enemies. And he said that before he went to fight overseas, his wife was a strong Christian and she was constantly talking to him about her faith and he just didn't care. Who cares about your soul? He said, I got stuff to do. I'm not going to church. And he said she was never pushy, never nagged me. She just went with the kids. He said, I just never went because what difference does it make? But then he was alone and he wrote this. He said, in prison, the sights and sounds and smells of death were all around me. And my hunger for spiritual food soon outdid my hunger for a steak. I wanted to know about that part of me that will never die. I wanted to talk about God and Jesus. But in the prison camp, in solitary confinement, there was no pastor, no Bible, no community of believers to guide me. I had completely neglected the spiritual dimension of my life, and it took prison to show me how empty life is without God. So I wonder what it'll take you. Jesus is really hammering this point home, saying this. Listen, a healthy soul is the key to the life that you actually want. A healthy soul is the key to the life that you want. And he's offering to bring your soul to life. He's offering you what you can't find in the world around you. So a couple of questions on this one. First, do you actually believe that sentence on the screen? Do you actually believe that a healthy soul is the key to the life that you want? Do you believe it? Some of you do, some of you don't. It's okay. This is a church where you can go at your own pace and figure this out. I believe it 100%. And I've experienced it. So the question is, do you want it now? And the bigger question is, well, how much do you want it? If you were trying to put a number to this, on 1 to 100, how much do you want a soul that is deeply connected to Jesus, receiving from him everything he's offering to you? Because what has to happen is that has to go to 100%. It's got to be the most important decision that you make every day. That's the challenge of this, isn't it? Because you're going to walk out of here and the world is going to say, who needs that Jesus guy? What you really need is this brand new item on Amazon. And if you just had this, the happiness you would feel so happy. So it's super hard to fight against this. So the way to do it is this, and this is the only thing we're going to talk about today, is prioritize and develop these connection habits. Prioritize and develop these connection habits. And I'm really just going to talk about 2. if Jesus is right, he's the vine and I'm a branch, and the key is remaining connected to him, then I need habits that are going to keep me connected to him. And if you attend this church at all, you know that my hero in the faith is a guy named George Mueller. I talk about him all the time. He cared for 10,000 orphans in the 1800s without any money. That's hard, right? 10,000 children. Instead, he just prayed about the needs, and God continually provided many times at the very moment it was needed. In his lifetime, millions and millions of dollars were given to him in answer to prayer, and his biography is here on the back table. We give it away for free. If you haven't picked up a copy or you lost your copy, you go ahead and take another one. And it's our gift to you, and if you're watching online, somebody just requested one. I think it's already in the mail, so please don't hesitate to request this, because this man's faith was amazing. And what did he say about this? He said, well, I saw more than ever that the first great and primary business to which I ought to attend every day was to have my soul happy in the Lord. What he was saying was this: he's the vine, I'm the branch, everything I need is going to be found in him. And so he spent the first part of his day connecting to Jesus so that Jesus could pour his life into him. And the two habits that were essential for him, and there are more than two, but these are like the core habits. And many of you know what I'm going to say because you've been around churches that said it. First is Bible reading, and this is how I listen to God. How I listen to God. And I know the Bible can be an intimidating book. So I know it can be overwhelming, and I also know we don't read much in America anymore, so I get that. So I know this is a challenge on multiple levels, and yet still I'm standing here saying it. And what I'd say to you is start small. You know, I put 3 chapters a day, and I put that down because that's what my mom taught me. I became a Christian at 14, and somewhere my mom heard, because she became a Christian right at the same time I did, and my mom told me, Brian, did you know if you read your Bible 3 or 4 chapters a day, you can read through that entire book in 1 year? I'm like, really? Because it seems like a lot. And so I put the Bible by my bed as a sophomore in high school, and I started reading 3 or 4 chapters before I'd fall asleep at night. And sure enough, in 1 year, I'd read through the whole Bible. So then I just started over. I just read through it again, 3 or 4 chapters. It's just a little bit of a habit. And we have Bible reading plans and all kinds of things on the resources here. And if you're watching online, you want any of those, you just send me a note and we'll email them to you. But start small. Use Bible Gateway if you're online, or the other one I say all the time is YouVersion. It's an app on your phone. Do you ever use YouVersion? Write down YOU version. Download the app for free. You can sign up to have Bible verses sent to you. I can't tell how many times my wife and I, especially my wife lately, it seems like has been saying, honey, did you look at the verse for the day? It's like, whoa. It's uncanny how many times it's exactly what you need from God in the moment you need it. Uncanny. Let him speak to you. But really, remember why you're doing it. You're not doing it because you just need something else to do early in the morning. You're doing it so that you can listen to what God has to say to you and pay attention to anything that creates any kind of emotion inside of you at all. So let me give an example. This is my habit. I get up earlier in the morning than I need to. You know, if this is a new habit, set your alarm 15 minutes earlier than you need to in the morning. Start by making coffee. That's where you start, okay? So, and if coffee isn't your thing, then buy whatever you need to keep your eyes open, okay? Red Bull, I don't care. Whatever you like that keeps you awake. So, whatever it takes. So, coffee first, then the Bible. So, then what I'll do is I'll sit down and I'm reading right now through a small little book called the Book of Colossians, and boy, this is what I'm telling you. So you can read, and eventually, if you build this habit in your life, God will really start speaking loudly through this book. So I was reading this last week, and I read this. Make allowance for each other's faults, and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. And I was just like, whoa. This sentence right here is what really got me. Anyone who offends you. Anyone. So whenever I'm reading something in the Bible and something like, oh, I react to that sentence, I just grab a piece of paper, or this was on my laptop, I had my laptop open, I just started typing, and I typed in the verse, and then I always write down, and these instructions, by the way, are on the cheat sheet in the back. If you want to learn how to do what I'm talking about, we offer them here. They're right on the back. Take one on the way out today. And I write down, well, why did that kind of zing me when I read it. And I started thinking about it. And I thought of this, we live in a society, in my opinion, that is so easily offended, right? Are we getting less offendable or more offendable, right? It's laughable to even ask the question. We get offended at everything. Are you kidding me? That's what you had on today? That's what you wore? That's how your hair looks? That's what you believe about? Oh my goodness. Everybody's offended all the time. All the time. And there's proverbs about this, about not being offended. Matter of fact, the leaders in the church, when in the New Testament, it describes lists of what the leaders in your church should be. One of the things is not easily angered. Did you know that? If you're easily angered, you don't qualify as a leader in the church. Can't be that way. Can't be that way. So they've got to have this, And think about Jesus. Literally, people were calling him the devil. Did he get offended when they said it? No, he just moved on. Worked with people that wanted to be around him. Right? So it's you don't see this in Jesus. Why do we see it so easily in the church? Because I don't know of a group that gets as offended about everything as Christians today. It's like everything offends us. Okay. It is what it is. This is where we're at today. It's a good question about why everything offends us. But what does he say we're supposed to do? Two things here. Did you catch both of them? First, the first part was this one, forgive. And who? Anyone. Anyone who offends you. Do you? Do you forgive anyone who offends you? But then look at the first part of this. Make allowance for their faults. Do you know what make allowance for their faults actually means? It has this idea that I'm going to make up positive reasons why this person did what they did that offended me. That's what the idea is. So, I tried to apply it, and I wrote this question: who has offended me? And two people immediately popped into my mind. And I wrote their names down, and I said, why was I offended? And in both of these cases, my behavior after I was offended was so unlike Jesus and caused a lot of consequences for me and other people. And so I knew right away I had to do what Jesus said to do, or what the New Testament says, right? Forgive them, but then say something positive, of making allowance for why they did what they did. And the more I made that my focus, the easier it became to do the forgiving part. Why would a good, reasonable person make this decision to do what they did to me? And as I made allowances for what they had done, forgiveness became easy. You know how many examples like this I could give you where I'm reading my Bible and something like that happens, and in that moment, the vine, Jesus, changes something about what's going on inside of me. Because, people around me have seen what I'm like when I'm bitter. And they would never say that's a good thing in me. But people have seen me too when I'm forgiving and open. And then they see joy and love and kindness. I'd rather have that one. Are you going to let God have the opportunity to speak to you at all? Start this habit. But then there's another habit that's just essential, and you see it all throughout Mueller's life too. It's prayer. It's how I talk back to God. And this is just so essential. And I know it's a point of frustration for a lot of Christians, because a lot of Christians feel very frustrated about prayer. And here I am saying, you should read your Bible and pray as these connection habits. And you're like, ugh, doesn't do anything for me, Brian. I can't make this work. I can't figure it out. Okay, use the resources in the back. I will happily talk them through with you. But here's what I've learned about this, and this is really critical. I've learned that there are mistakes that I make over the years that will undermine my ability to connect with God in prayer. And I put the biggest three on the back. So these are my big three. Oh, first, before you do that, if prayer is not a habit in your life and you're going to think about it, start simple. Don't say, I'm going to devote an hour a day to prayer. Because you may do it one day. Day 2 will be about 12 minutes. Day 3, you'll quit. Okay, so just start small. When I started reading my Bible, I don't know if my mom told me this too or what, but I just learned some simple things about praying. So I would read my Bible, 3 or 4 chapters. I'd close my Bible. I would pray for a little bit, and I'd fall asleep. And my habit started small. Please just start small. Give him an opportunity to say something to you and something for you to say to him. Start with a little bit of a list. Now, there's a caution with the list. I'll show you that in a minute. What are you praying about? Follow a simple formula. We give that away on the back table. It is my favorite prayer formula. I still use a modified version of that after all these years. That's what's on that formula. That's what I call it the cheat sheet. But here are the mistakes, and you got to watch out for these because they'll kill it. Mistake number 1 is just making this into a list or a prayer speech. So, if you turn anything into just a list that you have to get done, boring, right? But you have a choice. Like some of you have to go home and do some chores around the house. You have two ways to do those chores for your spouse, right? You can do it because you have to do it, or you can do it out of love for the other person. And if you do it out of love for the other person, it transforms it. It transforms the attitude that you have and the action. Love is the key. You are doing this to build a love relationship with a living God who's just crazy in love with you. So here's the thing I use, and this is just an example. It's on the back of your notes. Father, this is not a task for me to complete. This is about love. Loving you and receiving your love into my life. This is about a friendship and a relationship with you that I want to build, and that's why I'm talking to you. I don't want to make a prayer speech. I want to talk things over with you. Twice in the passage where he says, I'm the vine, you're the branches, he refers to his disciples as his friend. If Jesus was really your friend, what would you be saying to him today about what's going on in your life? If you simplify it down to that, you will have amazing encounters with God. What would you say to him if he was really your friend? Mistake number 2 is only using polite words, being inauthentic. Okay, so you got your little list, so you're like, all right, thank you, God, for this. And then I'm going to just pray for Susie, Aunt Susie, because she's got a gallbladder thing, so help Susie feel better, and amen, right? Okay. But that's not what you really want to say. Because what you really want to say is, I'm so frustrated because I pray to you and it seems like nothing ever happens. That's what you really want to say. Or, I'm so disappointed I don't see your help in my life at all. Look at my job. It sucks, and I don't see any way out of this. So, you want me to trust you? Because that's what you really want to say. And until you get that level of real with God, this will all be just a game. I had to do this recently. So, this has been a habit in my life since I was 14. So, for 40 years of my life, it's been a habit in my life, and it's at times an incredibly intense habit, and I just love it, and some days I don't love it. And recently, I got up early and I was reading my Bible, and I still was loving that, but when it came to prayer, I didn't want to talk to God. You ever not wanted to pray? So what we tend to do is just ignore that feeling and go on with our little prayer list, and I'm telling you, pay attention to the feeling. So what I said to God honestly was, you know what, God, I'd rather pretty much go do anything else right now than talk to you. Because if he was really my friend, that's what I'd say. And by the way, that's exactly how I felt. And at that level of authenticity, that's when you break through in the connection with God. And I just went on and said, I don't know why it is. I don't want to feel this way. It's so weird to me because just a short time before that, he felt so close to me and I felt so connected to him. And then it was just like, switch is flipped and now he's gone. And this is just a ritual. Tell him that. Tell him that's how you feel. Some of you, your honest sentence to God is, I've never felt anything through prayer with you, ever. I've never felt any connection to you at all. Oh, big surprise. He didn't know that's how you felt. Right? Oh, God's so surprised in heaven. No, he knows exactly how you feel. And it's in the authenticity that you connect with him. But the biggest mistake that I constantly make, I'm so sorry, church, using prayer to get what you want rather than using prayer to get God. Because it's about a relationship. It's about me connecting deeply with the vine. The story that I just love, this story just gets me every time. If you know your World War II history, there was a missionary family in the Philippines prior to the outbreak of World War II. And if you know your World War II history, you know who conquered the Philippines? Japan. And they didn't like Christians. So they threw all the Christian missionaries in a prison camp. And every single day, the Christians got together and they just said, oh, Jesus, please set us free, set us free. We need freedom, God. Set us free from this prison camp, please. And every day their prayer was for freedom, freedom, freedom. And there was a young teenage girl, the daughter of one of the missionary families, who every day would join them in their prayer time. And she started getting really disillusioned because she's like, it just doesn't seem like this is what we should be praying for. She said she noticed that freedom was the ultimate goal in life. And God seemed less and less important unless he was going to answer their prayer for freedom. So she came to a new outlook on life. She no longer wanted to join them in their prayer for freedom. Instead, she started praying this: Lord, I'm willing to stay in this prison for the rest of my life if only I could know you. And the moment she stopped using prayer to get something from God and made God the focus of her prayer, she said, I was free. Are you using God to get something? You can always know by what emotion you feel when God doesn't give you what you've been asking for. Because if you've been praying for something and God says no and you're done with God, then that was what was most important in your life, not God. God has to be the ultimate goal of this. Jesus, you're the vine, I'm the branch. The ultimate goal of this is that my friendship with you deepens so much that nothing this world has to offer me is as important to me or lovely to me as you. And prayer, this time that I'm spending, is about me getting to know you as my friend. Is that how you approach prayer? There's so much more to this, but that's all we have time for today. I want to ask you to think about this question as we finish up today. Which list do you choose? Again, you get these lists. Good news, this is a choice. Every day you make the choice. The choice for list number 2 is these are byproducts, fruit. All of those character qualities in list 2, God has. He has all of them and so much more. And he's saying, they're yours if you will make this connection with me a priority. So you choose every day. You pick. Which list do you want? Your choice. Begin here. Make the decision. Which list do you choose? And remember, you make this choice every single day. He's offering you life and beyond anything you've ever known. Are you giving God the opportunity to really speak to you? And are you, because you're reading your Bible and giving him just the habit, just begin a small habit with him. Are you making any of those prayer mistakes? Are you making prayer speeches? Some of you have really nice prayer speeches, but you don't actually mean any of it. It's just words that you're saying. Are you being 100% honest with him? Or the big one that I constantly trip over, are you using prayer to get something from God rather than using prayer to get God? That gets me all the time. My challenge to you is to set your alarm 15 minutes earlier in the morning than you need to get up. Have your coffee machine already percolating so you have the caffeine you need to make Jesus your focus. Let me have you bow your heads. You certainly hear me talk here about what I believe about this real and living God. He is just crazy in love with you. Listen, my kids are grown and gone, and yet when I get to spend time with them, I absolutely love it. I just love being with my children. And he's a better dad than I am. And this is how he feels when you approach him in prayer, when you open your heart and mind to him by picking up his book. He's just thrilled. You mean the world to him. And there's never a time he doesn't want to talk to you. Never a time he doesn't want to be with you. And this is all because of Jesus. His son, Jesus, came into the world and died on a cross for all of us, to pay for all the things that we're ashamed of and we feel guilt over. Jesus paid that debt in full and then rose again and offers every human being this chance, this opportunity for a completely new life with God as your Father. Maybe today this is the next step for you spiritually, is to reach this point of surrender and to ask Jesus for this gift. You can do it right now. You can say, Jesus, I'm turning to you. I need you in my life. don't want religion. I don't want rules. I want a real friendship with you. Please forgive me. And come make your home inside of me today. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this service today. We hope as a church and pray that this was something that really helps connect you deeper to Jesus. That's what we're all about as a church. If you need to communicate with us, if you go online to penuelchurchlife.com, in the upper right-hand corner is a box that says, I said yes to Jesus. It also says, please pray for me. Just click on that, and it'll take you to a place where you can communicate with us as a church. So if you ever want any of the resources we mentioned in a service, go there and let us know. We'll gladly send them to you. Or if you made a decision to say yes to Jesus or you have a prayer request, just let us know. And we're always glad to hear from the people who are watching online. And if we can continue to help you grow in your faith in any way, then we want to do that. So again, thank you. And our prayer is that you continue to grow and connect and find the true life that Jesus Christ is offering.